1, 2. Good morning, everybody. How are you guys this morning? Yeah. How was the online? Both of you liked it. Great. Well, it's time, so we're going to get things started. I did want to do a few housekeeping items, so just don't forget, later this morning we have the big discussion about Act 504 in here, and then we'll have the closing ceremonies after that. I did want to give a shout out to our keynote sponsor this morning, that's Halcyon, and I even have a little blurb prepared, so prepare yourselves. Halcyon is the first adaptive security platform built by offensive experts to protect your endpoints against ransomware. You can keep your operations going with their automatic decryption capabilities, and this allows you to potentially have zero interruption or downtime. And we do thank them for helping to make this keynote possible today. So thank you, Halcyon. And now a word on our keynote speaker this morning, and that is Keith Kruger, the CEO of COSIN. If you're not familiar with COSIN, the Consortium for School Networking is a nonprofit organization that serves as the voice of K-12 school system technology leaders in North America. COSIN's mission is empowering educational leaders to leverage technology to realize engaging learning environments. Keith was selected as Big Ten most influential people in EdTech and identified as a top 30 technologist, transformer, and trailblazer. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Keith Kruger.
Good to be here this morning, and it's nice to be back in Arkansas. I don't think I've been here for a few years, so it's good to see you. I don't know how many of you are actually pretty familiar with COSIN, or by raise of hands, how many of you don't? Okay, there are a few hands that aren't up. So we are a national education technology professional association for what we call leaders, so primarily people who are at a school system level, a district level. How many people would say you are the lead person for technology in your school district? Okay, some hands. How many of you are on the team of the technology? How many of you are maybe with solution vendors or partners? Okay. Not everyone put up their hands, so what kinds of, do I have people maybe tech coaches or? Okay. And what?
State government.
The what?
State government.
State government. Very good. Hi, good to see you. We were just in Washington earlier this week at the State Education Technology Directors Association. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you make the case for effective ed tech leadership? And that's really at the core of COSIN's mission. We are a professional association. You can buy lots of wonderful things, but if there's not people who can actually lead them, that's a big challenge, and we're never going to be successful. I'm noticing that we have the accessibility function put on. My staff went through some training this last week on how to be more accessible. So if that bothers anyone, we can turn it off. But it's a good tip of, it's just embedded within PowerPoint to help, hopefully not only those who can't see, but also, or can't hear, but also for those that are maybe sitting in the back that can't hear as well. So what I want to talk about today are three things, and we got a smallish group, so we can make it pretty informal. So please raise your hands. One is, who are kind of the district technology leaders? Who are the people in this room, and how does it match with kind of what we see nationally? What are some of the priorities that district leaders in technology have? What are the skill sets that this audience needs? Because I will make the case that it's kind of a hybrid career path. There are people that come with different backgrounds, so that makes it challenging sometimes to understand what the job is of what you have to do. And finally, I'm going to talk about, with the help of some folks from Arkansas, a certification that is available for district technology leaders. So I think we're really at a key moment, and we have been for a few years, where technology needs to be thought of as a strategic asset for the school system. It's very parallel to kind of where we saw finance maybe 50 years ago. There were bookkeepers and accountants in school districts back then. There are still bookkeepers and accountants, but almost every district has a chief financial officer who oversees finances and budget and money because it's a strategic asset. And they sit at the cabinet level. They probably report to the superintendent. In technology, we're not, I think we need to make the case that we are as strategic as money. You're still, yes, you need instructional coaches, yes, you need technicians, but at a system level, the superintendent and at the cabinet level, you need somebody who thinks horizontally. How do we enable the enterprise with the tools of technology for today? I'm kind of curious of those of you who are, how many of you sit at kind of a cabinet level in your district? A couple of hands, okay. For those that don't, who do you report to then? Assistant super for operations or for what? Operations. Operations, okay. Any other reporting structures? Chief academic officer, okay, so more of an instructional technology. Okay, so a lot of different modes. We do a national survey each year, we have for the last decade, and we ask, what is your primary background? How many in the room would say your primary background is educational? Okay, so not quite half the room. But that is the largest, and in fact, since 2013, then it was 45% of the audience, now it's 55%. We've seen an increase in people who have educational backgrounds. How many of you would say your background is more technical? Larger number here. My guess is in states which have smaller districts, there are more people with technical backgrounds. You can see that that stayed pretty steady, 44% in 2013, 42% today. So those are quite different skill sets, education versus technology. And then does anybody have kind of an MBA or a business degree? A couple of hands. Does anybody have like a military background? A couple of those. So, you know, my point in showing this is you really have a variety of different career paths, particularly either educational or technology. And the other thing is, at least nationally, about 2/3 of people in charge of technology at a school district level are male. And as I look out over the audience, my guess is that it's about 1/3 female. But there's quite a difference if you, and this chart is a little hard to read, I'm going to get in front of the microphone for the speaker, but female heads of technology are much more likely to have educational backgrounds, whereas male ones are much more likely to come from technical backgrounds. It's not exclusive. You can see that, you know, a third of you can see that that's not unanimous, but there are, again, demographic differences. And we see that there's not a lot of diversity compared to like our student population in terms of, at least at the administrator level of technology, and something that concerns a lot of school districts who are serving lots of students. And in fact, the teaching staff is often more diverse than the technology leadership. We also see that retirement, we've seen a lot of people retire. You can see that the bulk of people who are district directors are between 40 and 60. And when we ask them when are they going to retire, a good 20% are saying they're going to retire. In fact, 33% say 5 years or less. So there is going to be a big shift. A third of our heads of technology are likely to retire in the next 5 years, assuming that holds true. So one of the things that we think is important is that associations like here in Arkansas, state departments, and COSA nationally starts helping people who maybe are on the technology team, but will need to move up to a leadership position. We need to make sure that they have a career path. And we know that they come in with some strengths, but also some weaknesses. Either they have really strong technical skills, but not educational, or they probably have educational skills, but not as strong on the technology. Does that seem fair? So we have some challenges there, and there are programs that we're trying to start in order to help people early in the career. By early in the career, we mean 4 years or less. So that is one thing. So I thought I would talk a little bit about our national survey and what are some of the top priorities. I'm going to talk you can download or go to our website and read the full report because there's lots of information there. But there are 3 big issues that I think are very important for the education technology leadership. Number 1 is cybersecurity. This has been the #1 concern for chief technology officers for the last 6 years. How many in the room have actually had a cyber incident where you've been attacked? Okay. We know that according to Homeland Security, education K-12 is the #1 targeted sector. 57% of ransomware attacks over the last 2 years have been in the K-12 sector. There are lots of reasons for it, but the bottom line is you're considered a soft target. That means you don't have a lot of staffing and expertise around cybersecurity. We asked in our survey, do you have one person who their full-time job is working on cybersecurity? Only 1 in 3 school districts say they have. That isn't a CISO, someone who is senior, that's just one full-time equivalent working on cybersecurity. We also asked in the survey to look at different threats, like ransomware. And we find that when we ask, are you at a low risk, medium risk, high risk, very few chief technology officers are saying they're at a high or medium high risk, even though we know from Homeland Security that this is the #1 targeted sector. So there's an under assessment of what our vulnerability is. Just this fall, there have been 2 new studies about what the impact of that is. One of them by a consulting firm that looked at the cost of lost instructional time due to ransomware attacks over the last 5 years. $53 billion in all of education. About a quarter of that was higher ed, but the vast majority was in K-12. So there's a lot at risk in terms of cybersecurity. The second challenge, second dragon I want to talk about is digital equity. This came to the fore, of course. Many districts have been concerned about access, especially either at school, not having devices or connectivity, but also outside of school. And during the pandemic, that became even more important. And so we are finding that now that students are back at school, some superintendents, some school boards, some parents are saying, well, it's not that important. So last year we looked at actual data in 8 school districts at what the connectivity was and where it happened from. And we found out that a larger majority of access to the school network happens outside of the school. So if you don't have access, or you're underconnected and not able to do your homework from home, you're putting the most at-risk students who are disproportionately Black and Hispanic from poor and low-income families. So we also have just put out a toolkit about measuring your digital equity. So I think there's a slide later that I'll talk about. The third challenge is one that's really come on the fore, and that is artificial intelligence. I'm curious how many of you are having discussions about how AI fits into your school system in your district. Some conversations are starting, okay. You know, this is a big, hairy challenge, trying to figure it out, and I'll talk a little bit later about some resources that we just put out to kind of a checklist to ask questions about. So we've done this survey for a decade, and I thought it's kind of interesting. This might be a little hard to read, but you know, we've talked about some of these. We asked, what are your top 5? What are your top 3 issues? And these are the top 5 for 2023. Cybersecurity is clearly number 1. I told you it's been that for several years. Network infrastructure, number 2. Data privacy and security, number 3. Being prepared for a crisis preparedness is number 4. And parent-school connections. Now the lower half are the top 5 10 years ago. They're all completely different. The number 1 10 years ago was mobile learning. The number 2 was bring your own device. The number 3 was online assessment readiness. Number 4 is broadband access, I think primarily then meant at school. Number 5 was cost-effective smart budgeting. That's the only one that's still in the top 10, that's at 7. Everything else you can see is, you know, on a list of 30 priorities, it's more closer to 30 than the top 5. So the reason I like showing this is that things really change. Things really change for education technology leaders. So you need to be staying current, because the things that you were fixing just a few years ago may not be the biggest challenges, like AI, like digital equity, or cybersecurity. None of those 10 years ago were the priorities. So what is it that you as a technology leader need to know, especially since you come from a variety of different career paths or preparation paths? And we think this is the most important thing around effective use of technology is people. This is the old Pogo cartoon. Nobody's probably old enough to remember Pogo, but he used to say, "I've seen the enemy and he is me." So, and we think that there's a lot of focus on the technology, but we won't ever get it right if we don't get the people right. So about 20 years ago, we decided that we needed to define what those skill sets were that you as district technology leaders need to know. And this graphically represents that, first of all, fundamentally we believe that technology and education, at the heart of it, is advancing learning. That's fundamentally the purpose. And in all education, in all sectors, managing the network is the responsibility of the technology leader, what we generically call the chief technology officer. So that's kind of that first wave. The second wave, though, is really important, and that is how are we going to use it in the education environment? How do we apply the technology? It isn't just a technical issue, but how do we make sure that people know how to use it? And finally, if we want to provide strategic value to that, to your superintendent, to your school board, to your cabinet, you need to understand leadership and vision. So these are the big buckets, and there are 10 essential skills, about 3 or 4 in each of those 3 buckets that you need to know. And that forms the framework for kind of everything we do. We try to map to the framework of essential skills. And here, I'm going to try to get here. If you look at leadership and vision, that highest level bucket, there are skill sets under leadership and vision, ethics and policy, and strategic planning. Under understanding the education environment, there's instructional focus and professional development. There's team building and staffing, and there's listening to stakeholders. stakeholders, including students and parents. And then the third and more traditional technology skill set is around managing the technology and support resources. So that is information technology management, communication systems, which now run. Remember, 20, 30, 40 years ago, the phone system was separate. It now runs on your network, as do all the security things, the cameras, the locks, the Internet of Things. Business management, meaning all that sort of side of technology and data management. So that's kind of, we've tried to provide a framework because, a lot of, when we look at job descriptions for directors of technology, we often see they're only talking about some narrow piece that's pretty technical. And then we hear from the superintendent and she says, we hired somebody and I can't talk to them. I don't understand what they're talking about. I don't see what they mean. So what we're trying to do is to say, this is a new kind of person, a new kind of skill set, and I think some of you are already doing that. Others of you may be in districts where they've defined you very narrowly. And so what if you want to advance, either in your current school district or at another, we think you need to understand all of this to be truly an effective leader. So we think that the framework does allow you to be kind of your own personal, professional pathway, to kind of look at what are your strengths. You might say, oh, I've got that I came with an education degree, I got that part. I don't have the part on policy and leadership, or I don't have the technical aspects. We also think it's important that other leaders, certainly your superintendent, but also your peer group at a school district level, that they understand that this is a career path and there is a core set of knowledge to do it. Just as there is for finance directors, they would get a certification in finance, or the curriculum people would have a master's or PhD in instructional learning. So we have also taken the framework and written what are the tasks under each of those. So it's not just a theoretical framework, but there are tasks behind it for each of the skill sets, and you can read this. I'll make available the slide deck. I'm not sure how you get that, but somewhere you'll get that. Or you can give me your card and I'll be happy to follow up. So based on this framework, we have created the first ever national, in fact it's basically international, certification for school system technology leaders. It is absolutely based on the framework. It was built by your peers who are heads of technology. It's overseen by an independent governing board committee, so what it exactly is it's a certified education technology leader, which we call CETL credential. And to get that, you have to pass an exam. You have to be eligible to sit for the exam. It is the only accredited practice-based certification for EdTech leaders. So represents what we think are and has been verified independently as the highest standards of excellence based on the delineation of practices. And even if you don't have the generic title of Chief Technology Officer, we think it's applicable to you if you're, whatever, your titles are going to vary. This is a skill set for leadership in EdTech. So why do we think certification is important? First of all, for the education sector, it's important to know that there are standard skills and knowledge about this. It gives you the ability to say to your leadership, I adhere to those highest standards. It elevates the profession, because this has been this is a relatively new profession in education. 20, 30, 40 years ago, there weren't people doing things like what you do. And, hopefully other departments will see the value of it. And we know that from a personal perspective, it can be a really high, something that people are very proud of. It's not easy to achieve, but and we're going to hear from a few right there. This is the first of its kind certification, EdTech certification, to be accredited by the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. That there are only 130 companies across all industry sectors that have achieved that. So this is a gold standard for certification. So I thought we would invite up two of our folks from Arkansas who have gone for SEAL. Rather than me talking from Washington to tell you what's good, it would be better to hear what their experience has been.
Good morning.
Am
I good now?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Charlie Weber, and I was actually one of the first 3 SEALs within the state of Arkansas, because about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Daryl we met up with COSIN at ISTE, and then Keith had helped link us up with somebody named Frankie. She came in and did a 2-day pre-conference immersion course. It was me and about 12 other people in the room, and sat through the course for 2 days, going through all of those essential frameworks and things, and I just knew that I needed to up my game. I had been a tech director for 5.5 years, and I'd been affiliated with our state ISTE affiliate and in the leadership there, but there were massive blind spots when it came to that policy and procedure stuff and encouraging stakeholder involvement. How many of us had we had the technology plans back in the day where you had to have a technology committee, but how many of us actually listened to them? How many of us actively sought out teacher or student or even community input when we were making decisions about technology within our district? And so out of that 2-day immersion course, I kind of knew, and I went back at the time I was working at P Ridge as a network admin, and I just started hammering the self-paced training and assessment guide, sat down about 3 weeks later and took the test, and found out in February of 2019 that I had become one of those SEALs. The only other SEALs within the state of Arkansas at the time was a superintendent at Fort Smith Schools who came up from Texas, where this is a very big deal. You basically don't get to be in any sort of technology leadership in that state without this certification. And then it was myself, Vernon Dunbar, and BJ that all kind of took it about that same time, and that's why I say I was one of the first 3. I don't know who got it first, but we understood the value. And when we talk about leadership, I'm the computer programmer, I'm the data guy at Rogers Schools, but I can still bring leadership even without having the title of CTO. That when we sit down as a technology team with the systems team and the CIO and my help desk people, I can help build up my help desk people. I can help talk about policies and procedures, because thanks to this certification, I've kind of been able to change my mindset when I approach things. I don't approach the whole AI discussion now, post going through this and kind of opening my mind a little bit more, the same way I would have 5 years ago before. Because I understand there's a lot more information out there, and I'm one of those other people. I am not a trained technologist, I am not an educator, I'm a trained therapist. I deal with feelings. And so, for me, DIS helped get me up there for the technical skills. Working with the ISTE affiliate kind of helped bring parity to some of that with understanding the classroom technology. But this really supercharged, I think, my vision and my ability to understand what is needed in educational technology that makes us some of the best techs in the state, as Darryl likes to say when we're here at ACON. Because we are the best techs in the state of Arkansas.
So, for me, about 2 or 3 years ago, I started looking for, I'm just to be honest with you, I started looking for a way to elevate myself to my superintendent, my admin. So my parents are both teachers, which is part of the reason I ended up in technology and education. Was I'm a very technology-based guy, but my parents were in education. I've known that world my whole life. So I started looking at what I could do, and I sat down and talked to my dad, and he was like, well, you could get a master's or, something like that. I'm like, well, they don't pay attention to that in school. And he said, well, the reason they don't is look at what superintendents and principals do. So a principal, when they're a teacher, they want to be a principal, they go back and they get a certification in education. Now they'll take classes, some of this because my dad has his principal certificate. So they'll take classes that don't just have to do with teaching, but it's all education based. Well, you want to be a superintendent, same thing. You take education courses related to all of this other stuff. He said, so what you need to do is you need to find something that's technology based, but focuses on the education, not the technology, because that's what the admin and districts are going to look for. So I think it was 2 years ago, I came to ACOT and I saw the pre-conference thing that BJ did about the SEAL stuff, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. Well, then I sat in with the thing with Jared and BJ, and they were talking about it. I was like, that is what I need to do. So I will say I'm not as smart as Charlie. I couldn't sit down and do it myself. I got in a study group, and there were several of us together, and I will tell you, if you can do it, that's the way to do it. Because as you, not just trying to learn it for myself, but in the times we would each take a piece. And when you start trying to prepare to teach other people, it will actually teach you the material to me better than trying to just learn it for myself. So there was another book, I think Joel recommended, that's a really good one. I can look that up, but there were several things that came along, and then I took the course. So since then, I'm like Charlie, I'm not the head guy, but if you understand, if you can, a lot of the stuff in the test, if you're technology based like me, you're going to learn to, I say I learned to speak teacher. You're going to learn the language of education so that when you talk to things, when you're trying to make the case for something, you can put it in terms that an admin will be able to understand, where, like I don't remember who it was, I think it was you who said they had this person that they couldn't even talk to because you're speaking two completely different languages. So if you can get to the point that you can couch it in terms that they understand, you'll ease that communication, and that will smooth a lot of things over. So it's been very helpful for me.
That's great. Why don't we see, are there any questions that people have for Charlie or John?
Well, I'm curious. I think a lot of the problem with say people in education isn't the fact that we're willing to try to get another certificate or degree, but it doesn't seem to matter. Not when you're looking at pay scale. We're all in it, we're in it for the kids, yes, but we're also in it for the money. Nobody can say they're not in it for the money. We're all here for the money. But, so how do you go about that? How do you go about, okay, I've got the certificate now, but what does that mean to your administration? Does it mean, okay, go file it in the file, or does it mean I'm now one up, so, I need to be up a little bit further on the pay scale?
So in a parallel effort, we do try to educate superintendents about what the value of certification is, and that if they want to get to their vision of a new kind of learning, it's essential that they have the human capacity behind them. And so in your Arkansas Superintendent's Association, has endorsed COSIN's Empowered Superintendent, which explains to superintendents what are the skill sets, that framework of essential skills, and that your job description needs to not only talk about narrow technical skills, but in fact these broader leadership skills. We also do have data through the surveys we do about pay scales, but there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that people who are in leadership positions and have credentials actually get recognized and honored for that. And I hope this happened for you, but when you pass the CETL certification, we do a media release, we send a certificate, with the state chapters, we encourage them to come and maybe do at the school board or a cabinet level a presentation. What we do is we want to raise the visibility and awareness about becoming a great leader. Did any of that?
So, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So for my district, once they did that, Mike, Burns, anyways, yeah, he came and he did a recognition for me at a school board, which raised, yet again, that puts it in front of the superintendent. There are resources you can give to your superintendent to let them know there's some, a CTO yearly assessment things, like he was talking about, that you can give to say, okay, these are the things you need to be judging me on as you evaluate my performance. And then for my district, I have a great assistant superintendent, a great superintendent at this point, but they actually gave me a stipend. So I get $1,000 a year for having the certification. That's not a whole lot, but it is something. So that's just one of those, there's not a guarantee, but the way everything is structured, it really does try to do its best to put you in a position where your admin will recognize that this is something important.
1 second, we'll get there. P Ridge, where I originally earned my certification, did not pay me any more money to do it. They did pay for my class and my certification, so I'm very thankful for that, but I did not get any additional funding for that. Rogers does not pay any more for me having it either. I'm not doing it. I would love to get $1,000 stipend. I think I've not met a person in my life that has said no to a pay raise. When you find them, let me know who they are, because I will accept the pay raise for myself from them. But one of the things I'd actually encourage in that situation is not to advocate for your own pay raise, but advocate for your team to get pay raises. Talking about the importance of certification and continuing professional development that you can track within the team. And then when you get them paid more and them getting those stipends, it's a lot easier to turn around and say, by the way, we're doing this for the team. What do we want to do to encourage my own professional development? And here's what I've been doing. And then it's a little bit easier because it doesn't look like you're just looking out for you. You've built your team up. You've also now given your team something to strive for. And the district does this all the time already on the certified side. And I'm not one to argue the certified classified line stuff often, but techs are probably, even though we may not have a bachelor's degree or formal education, we have to be just as skilled in our field as a teacher does in theirs. And getting administrators to understand that continuous professional development, maybe even talking to them about incorporating the PLC process, using their language, so that when you go to ask for more money, they already have that mindset of, I'm not treating you like a classified person, like the people who do the lawn mowing and the cafeteria workers and the secretarial. We're treating you like we treat our certified staff.
And I would encourage everybody to look at what your job description is and then go on the COSIN website and look at the suggested job description for a chief technology officer. Then work with your either HR person or your superintendent or whatever to say, I want to upgrade my skills. I want to seek to become certified. Can you get me on that path? And if we get on the path, there's also like questions that superintendents can do for an annual review of a district technology leader. so that they're asking the right questions there's no big secret. It's all tied to those 10 essential skills.
And with the certification, you also have to do professional development. So we're required to, it's not the same amount that teachers get, but we're required to do professional development. And so again, when you go to your admin, like Charlie was saying, when you go to your admin and say, now I'm required to do professional development and I have to do these things, it puts them in that different mindset of, okay, I can't treat you like somebody who is just this classified person. Now I have to think of you in the same terms that I think of you with certified folks.
Another question?
You answered part of it was who
Okay.
paid for your, training, but then how much does it cost?
So I'll get to that in a second. I think Kate got here.
That I know we'll talk about that. Also, TELR is looking at doing scholarships. For those that don't know who TELR is, that is the state COSIN affiliate. It's also the AAEA affiliate for us. And so we worked intentionally. I was part of that board from 2018 to about 2021, 2022, that we created TELR, which is Technology Education Leaders of Arkansas. We became a COSIN state chapter, and then after we had the COSIN state chapter, we joined up with AAEA because we know for all of us, we want a seat at that table. And the way that we get the seat at the table, probably best, is to be partnering with AAEA because our superintendents listen to them. That is a very important resource for us. And if you're not involved, please think about talking with myself, Jared Morrison, BJ. Several of us are on the board here, or just go to the website and check it out. But there is going to be scholarships and stuff coming available that we're working with AAEA to get out to help cover the cost for training and certification.
But you're going to want to be a member of TELR because there's a difference in the cost for members versus non-members. So and I would assume the scholarships are probably for TELR members, but
That are members of COSIN, yeah. They give the COSIN member rate.
I can tell you because Rogers doesn't pay for COSIN and TELR right now. When I re-up my certification, I have to pay the non-member rate, which does not make me happy because I'm trying to get this brought into the district. But as somebody who's not in that leadership role, I don't get to, that's not my decision to make. I can just advocate. And when the amount of times I'm here's a COSIN resource onto the CIO's desk, like, hey, what are we doing about AI? Here's what COSIN has put out about AI. Hey, what are we doing about this? This is what COSIN has put out because it's a nationally recognized organization that's heavily research-based. And so I'm just trying to show the value to my own leadership of why this is important.
So because it's kind of the gold standard, you have to have a few years you have a bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you can file an appeal, like let's say you've been in the military in a senior position for years, you can get waivers for that. 4 years in education technology, and you have to sign the code of ethics. I think we've already heard from those who passed it. The best way, I think, is you can certainly self-assess, but getting in a cohort of others studying for it, that many people say was the most valuable thing because you end up creating your own network of people you can call when you have problems. If you're interested in this, and you're still not sure, just give me your email or send an email to certification@cosin.org, and Chelsea, who runs that program, will answer whatever your questions are. You can sign up for it on the website, and it has all the information. You have to pay a fee in order to take it. If you want to study cohort, there's a separate fee for that. I talked about the framework of essential skills. The test is exactly organized around the framework. So about 40% of the test is around leadership and vision. That includes ethics and policy and things like that. And then a third split between understanding the education environment and managing the technology. So we think you need to come out of the sitting for this CETL certification with a balanced understanding of kind of everything that you do. There are 100 items. There are typically 4 possible questions, and there's not always a right wrong, but we want you to answer the best one. So you'll want to kind of go on and read that. These are the exams for a member of COSIN. It's $489. For non-members, it's $829. So I'll tell you, for a small school district or even a medium-sized school district, just pay the district membership in COSIN, because it's you're making it up right there and sitting for the exam. There are lots of tips. I'll make this slide deck available for anyone that wants it, and we don't need to go over all of those details. It is a time-limited certification for 3 years, and then you have to get continuing education credits for it. So for instance, by attending this conference, you would get a certain number of points towards your recertification. Or if you write articles or sit on a committee with the local association or come to the national COSIN conference, all of those sorts of things account towards the points for recertification. And that's because we don't think that this is a once and done. It's not a certificate program. It's not a degree program. Like, you could have an instructional technology degree that you got in 1990, and God knows how that would prepare you to be handling today. This is intended to be, in fact, we find that over 75% of our audience of chief technology officers already have a master's or higher level degree. So that was why we could have created this as a program and gone to schools of education and created another degree program. But what we heard very clearly in focus groups was we already have that. I want something that is practical and actually helps me stretch as a leader and keeps me current. We also, in the past, probably 10% of the exam was about US laws. We have pulled that out so that the CETL certification can be taken from anywhere in the world by leaders. And because you're in the US and do want to know about US laws, we have the USA function. So typically people from the US you'll end up getting CETL USA, and that will include questions about things like E-rate and FERPA, protecting data, things that you need to know as a leader around what the legal environment is. I'm just going to wrap up. First of all, let me stop. Are there any burning questions around what we talked about this morning?
Can you give us like a time frame? I know they kind of hit how long it took them, but just an average.
I would say,
hours.
I mean, I would sign up for a cohort, and there are different models. I heard somebody participated in a 2-day intensive. That's pretty intensive to do. The way I hear more people like is a cohort that meets maybe every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks for 6 months or something.
We did every week for 8 weeks, I think. And then, so that was 2 months, and then I took it just basically right after that. So it was about a 3-month window.
We used to offer these intents, like at the National COSIN Conference 2 days before. It's not a good experience for people, and it's better to be in an ongoing cohort. It's a lot of content. We do have a lot of resources that I just wanted to briefly mention. If you haven't poked around the COSIN website, I suggest there's a lot of stuff on cybersecurity, including how you can make the case for more investment. There's also kind of staffing for cybersecurity. I already said only 1 in 3 school districts have a full-time equivalent. Well, okay, so basically people are embedding it with existing job descriptions or existing job responsibilities. So we've taken pieces of what cybersecurity are and how you would embed that part of the job of cybersecurity into different positions. We also have examples of other ways that districts are staffing. So maybe you can work with your community college or vocational college to offer some early career job training and early career things. So we're seeing in some school districts they're doing cybersecurity academies where students go and do on-the-job training and actually end up with Cisco certification. In the district that's doing that in Ohio, the kids are being offered $60,000 for jobs or better as they graduate from high school. So I think there's different creative ways that you're going to have to do, especially since you're understaffed in that area. We also just 2 weeks ago put out you may be familiar with NIST, which is part of the federal government. They have the gold standard for cybersecurity for all industry sectors. It's kind of overwhelming for the average K-12 institution. So what we've done is gone with that framework and identified specific K-12 resources that are either available from COSN or from others, many of which are free. So if you haven't looked at it, I would strongly recommend you do. We also follow policy, and particularly we've been tracking what's happening on cybersecurity at the state and at the national level. We put out an annual report that's kind of an autopsy of things that have happened. But we also, with our Arkansas chapter, we alert chapters every 2 weeks during the state legislative process to say, do you know that this legislation is being considered or has been marked out of the House? And that's the time for people like you to educate and inform, to make sure that smart things are happening. What we're seeing nationally is a lot of mandates on K-12 without a lot of resources. And so it's important that legislators hear from you and your superintendent's association, hey, you can put all the mandates on that you want, but if we don't get some help with money, it's going to be a problem. I mentioned digital equity earlier in the process. We've just come out this summer with a new digital equity dashboard. I would encourage all of you to look at it. It's using free and publicly available data that's available from, say, the Census Department, or there's broadband data from Ookla, upload and download data. But what's unique about this is we've aligned it to every school district boundary in the United States. So if you want to know what the correlation is on this publicly available data, you can look for your school district and you can compare with all the other rural school districts in your state or nationally. And some school districts are taking this and adding in their student information data so that they actually know student by student. This information would be like down to the census data. But it could be very useful as you're writing grants or as you're working on strategies to look at what areas of your district are unconnected, or how does that correlate with healthcare information. It's very powerful data. We talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. The blue document was one we did 3 years ago, a primer on AI, and it's been updated now with artificial intelligence. We also, if you're a member of COSN, you get periodic updates on guidance of things we recommend. But I want to mention 2 free things we just put out in the last month. The first is we worked with the biggest urban school districts in the country, the Council of Great City Schools, and created a AI readiness checklist. There are 93 questions in 5 domains. things that you should ask, and it's binary, yes, no, or I don't know. And sometimes the I don't know is a trigger for, gee, maybe we need to do some work thinking about that. We also are, this is the slide, we were part of Teach AI, which is a coalition, and we put out 2 weeks ago policy guidance, which kind of, if you haven't looked at that, you might look at that and think about how you update your acceptable use policies and how to think about artificial intelligence in K-12. We also have a lot of privacy of student data information, and we also do an annual report on innovation in K-12. We have lots of workshops and online courses and on all of the topics that we've talked about today. And I hope that I'll see some of you down in Miami in April. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. If anyone